By the spring of 2011, Russell Douglas had been dead for more than 7 years. His suspected killer was still on the loose because the only person on Earth who knew his true whereabouts wasn't talking to detectives.
I mean, they've been watching me for years. They've tapped my phones.
And police were pretty sure that you were still in contact with Jim.
Well, sure, they had a good idea.
And they were right.
Of course, they were.
The man no longer known as Buck Naked had been able to build a new life for himself in Mexico. And even played the occasional gig.
He's in Veracruz, Mexico. I went down there a few times to see him. And, of course, to bring him more money. He was teaching music to kids in a music school down there. I'd fly up to Dulles Airport and then out to Kansas and then to Mexico City and change planes, and so they couldn't track how I was going and how I was getting to him. Or we'd meet in other cities. I never flew directly to him, so they couldn't trace me, to get to him.
But that kind of devotion doesn't come cheap. Jim's life on the lam has taken a toll on Jean's health, and it's devoured the inheritance she received when her mother died.
The man cost me everything I had. I spent every dime I had. I lost my house. I lost my livelihood. Sorry.
And yet, after her father died in 2007, Jean says she seriously considered joining her husband in Mexico, where he was known as Maestro Jim, and sharing his life as a fugitive.
I knew what border crossing I was taking. I had a new ID. I was getting ready to leave and not be able to come back to this country for the rest of my life.
Maybe you could have died in a shootout with him.
Yeah, exactly. It probably would have happened, because who knows? He probably would have taken me out next.
That did not happen for one reason. Just days before she planned to join Jim, Jean met this man, Bill Bruner, and fell in love.
And he finally made me see what foolish thing that would be to do. And for some reason, I listened to Bill. And no, he saved my life, basically.
So love kind of wrecked your life.
Yeah.
And then love also saved your life.
Yeah, I guess it did. It sure did. Yep.
Because of Bill, Jean gave up her dream of rejoining Jim Huden. But it wasn't until the spring of 2011 that Bill Bruner convinced her to give up the addiction that was Jim.
I just finally had enough. I know Jim doesn't love me. He didn't care about me when he did what he did, and he still doesn't care about me, and probably even less so now that I'm out of money.
More than that, Jean had herself gotten into some legal trouble after Jim fled to Mexico. In exchange for immunity from prosecution on some drug and check forgery charges, Jean told authorities all she knew about the murder of Russell Douglas and just where Jim Huden could be found.
They're not interested in me. They wanted Jim. They said they would not prosecute me, and I certainly hope they stick to their word.
In June 2011, Mexican authorities picked up the man variously known as Buck Naked or Maestro Jim in Veracruz and quickly turned him over to waiting U.S. Marshals. When the plane carrying Jim back to Washington State landed in Seattle, he was greeted by a familiar face. And you said what? Jim, nice to see you again?
I said, Jim, I'm not sure if you remember me, but I'm here to escort you back to Island County. I said, you're under no obligation to talk to me, and he immediately said, I don't want to.
Something he should have said years earlier.
Probably would have been a good idea.
For the foreseeable future, Jim Huden would be wearing exactly the ensemble he had for so long sought to avoid. Immediately after Huden's arrest, detectives began trying to track down his former lover, Peggy Thomas. A routine computer data search led police to this lake in New Mexico, where they discovered Peggy Thomas kept an 80-foot houseboat that she'd gotten in her divorce from Mark Allen.
They just said she was a really nice person, that she was single, and that she had put the name Off the Hook on her boat due to the fact that she was single.
Captain Bryce Current of the San Juan County Sheriff's Office says Peggy Thomas was lured back to the marina with the bogus promise that there was a package waiting for her. Current says she didn't seem all that surprised when he placed her under arrest.
She had an attorney, and that she'd been waiting for this day and was kind of ready to get it over with.
Peggy Thomas was all business, Current says, and wasted none of her legendary charm on him.
No, just enough time for her to make fun of me, make fun of my braces and how young I looked. She thought it'd be somebody older, she said.
After waiting 7 long years, Russell Douglas's family was elated that his suspected killers were in jail. But Russell's wife, not so much.
And I called Brenna, and it was kind of a stunned silence for a little bit. And then it was like, oh, well, good. But it was not the ecstatic, thank God, something that I was really wanting to hear.
In July 2011, when Russell Douglas's family gathered in solidarity for Jim Huden's first court appearance, Russell's widow was conspicuously absent.
I asked her, I was like, are you gonna go? She's like, why would I go? It doesn't concern me. It just didn't quite seem right.
It would take another year before Jim Huden and the wife of the man he was accused of killing sat in the same courtroom. And when they did, all eyes would be on her.
Coming up, Brenna Douglas. Could she have anything to do with the plot to kill her husband?
I said, who all knows about this?
Did he tell you?
Yes, he did.